Hi everyone, and welcome to the next video in the Wounded Healer to Heroes podcast. And we have again the lovely Caroline Tobin. And today we are going to be talking about exploring the heart of the alchemist. So again, I'm going to introduce myself and Caroline. So I'm Eileen Burns. I'm a soul empowerment coach. I'm a coach healing therapist. I'm owner of Stress Coach Training and the Spiritual Marketing Club. And we have the lovely Caroline. Caroline, if you introduce yourself.
Hello, Eileen. Thanks for inviting me back. Such a joy to be here working with you today and your lovely audience. Yes, my name is Caroline Tobin. I am a spiritual medium. I'm also a transformational coach who I work with the archetypes. I also work with the Akashic Records and I teach. And I specialize in the scapegoat, which is very prevalent at this moment in time. So that's kind of the things I do, teaching and empowering those that have the ability to walk in the invisible world as well as the material world.
Thank you, Caroline. So today, myself and Caroline are going to be discussing the light and aspects of the alchemist's journey and how, we can all choose to go down the light aspects or the shadow aspects of the alchemist journey, particularly even when we're working as light workers or healers, and even how that sometimes it can be a bit of both, because like everything, there's the light and shadow aspect in all of these things within us all. So Caroline, I'll let you start. So
okay. So how I would look at the alchemist is the way that I have been taught it is that it's very much part of one of the archetypes on the hero's journey, and it is kind of the end of the journey just before it goes back into the child. So there is no end, it just continues. And when we start on that journey, on that hero's journey, everything is just normal. And then we get that call in, it comes and it knocks for us. And part of that journey then is realizing that there is an invisible world, that there is more than the material that's within the world that you're in. So many people might have seen that recently. They were just jogging along, having a great life, going shopping at the weekend, and then everything kind of fell apart. And then you'll see part of that soul's journey coming up, coming through. Maybe they didn't want to do certain things, going up into the rebel. And then maybe they got to the part where they had to care about other people and put their needs first. And then the lover comes where you have to realize that you are on this journey, and there's that part that's serving. And that means in those moments when there's great stress in the world, some people actually start to see reality very different. They start to see the truths of things that are happening that other people may not see. And when you get to that lover part of the journey, then that's about to me is about belonging and being in love with truth and beauty and things like that. And there's that compulsion to be able to speak that truth. And I saw a division in humanity where some people didn't want to look at stuff like that. They wanted to go back into that old world, but it had already cracked. But there were certain people, and that's where to me is that journey. Certain people then went through those wounds like the wounded healer and chose a pathway towards the alchemist, and I would call that the right hand path. So they wanted to serve, others, and they go through all those kind of different stages until they get to the alchemist. But there's also the left hand path, Eileen. That's people that choose to serve themselves. So they may have had a spiritual awakening as well, but they're not interested in serving others. They're only interested in serving the self. and what power that brings when they start to understand there's an invisible world. And that can be healers, that can be psychics, that could be mediums, that can be anybody working within this field. So when you start to go into the alchemist, there has that shadow of the alchemist, and there is also that light aspect. But you get to that point by choosing yourself. It's a free will whether you decide to do that.
Like a fork in the road,
A
isn't it?
fork in the road, Eileen, 100%. And have you seen that within your own journey?
Yeah, I think, like, first of all, one of the things I think it became more apparent, and you know, too, I think you know, talked to one of the other videos about, you know, some of my own experiences where I've seen the shadow element in the healers, and where maybe an abuse of power with alchemists, but also this kind of naivety, and I think there's an element of it. But one of the things I think I would say, um, it was more obvious when I actually, even I seen that aspect, I seen more of the wounded healer. I think that's what I was recognising. But it's when I started my business, I actually noticed more of the other aspect, because I was seeing things from a business perspective and an ethical perspective, and started to see when people weren't being really that honest, or it was just about the money. And I started to see huge, you know, I know there was always things like fast track and things like that in industry, but a lot of things where so many, also even healers that came to me for help, being taking advantage of certain types of training schools and other things that went on. So all the unethical things, and you know, we all can have different values because that's part of the archetypes, but really things to me that were definitely not of integrity, and that alarmed me. And one of the things I've definitely seen, even to an even higher degree over the last 10 years, is what we touched on in the last session, was about, you know, this, but commercialism, it's almost like the industry, the spiritual, has became an industry. Like when I first of all even studied, for example, Reiki, and you know, most people thought you were a weirdo. And you were like, you know, they didn't want, you know, it was almost like you were the odd one out, you know. And it was not kind of normal. That was kind of, was, you know, you were way out there, and you didn't do it for that reason. It was something, all these things you were drawn to for a different reason. And I know even when I started my business, I only wanted to help other people. And I wanted a purpose as well, because I had been so ill, but it was a big calling. It was a deep calling within my soul. And I wanted to dig deep, and I wanted to learn, and I wanted to be, it was truth. I was seeking truth. So there was something there. I was not motivated by money, but I obviously wanted to have a living. I wanted to have, you know, but what I saw was so many things in business from that perspective, in many levels of the shadow element in relation to either what I describe as like the dark magician, where, or not even the dark magician, the magician, the little sorcerer who doesn't really know what they're doing. And they have a little bag of, almost like they just want to fast track their skills. So they're just dipping their toe in. And it's like this, the way that it's almost like, oh, I'm fascinated by all this, these things. But it was not getting used in a safe, you know, somebody being very reckless. That was what I saw. And I also saw the moral element, but I also could see in society through many of my experiences, and also I suppose, you know, people that are supposed to help, you know, make change or shift change. There was things that at a core level didn't feel right, and so many layers of illusion in society. I could almost see it and sense it, but it was almost like I was looking through the eyes of things and thinking, why do people not do anything about this? I'm trying, you know, you're trying to change things. And I think that when you see, once you kind of open that door and you see what it's supposed to be like, what life's supposed to be like, in that magic and that purity and the magic and the miracles and that God connection, that light. Once you have some access to that point, to me, it was almost like, well, why is there all this other? It doesn't have to be all this illusion. It doesn't have to be this way. And I couldn't understand, because I couldn't understand why certain people, particularly, I know this doesn't, it doesn't involve just going down the healing path, but why did people choose to go that way, when I thought that everybody who went down that journey were all about service to others? I found that a bit strange. I could understand there was some aspects coming from the survival response, but couldn't get my head around some of the things that I saw.
Understand, yeah. And I think part of it is understanding that we go in very naive at the beginning of a journey. We trust and we're very open, almost childlike. And some of those people that have come before and who are in that dark magician kind of energy are actually putting spells with words. So it's all about the words. There's no substance behind it. And unfortunately, human nature can be influenced by things like that. If you haven't learned to be discerning, when you look at things like NLP, like even the TV, the energy that comes through with advertising on a subconscious level, and it can implant things in that you're not even aware of. So very, very soon you become part of it. It's what I said last week, without kind of making it dramatic or anything like that. But it can become very cult-like very quickly. And we've all done it in a way, because you give that adoration. You think somebody else has the answers that you haven't got. And I know for myself, at the beginning of my journey, as I was talking about some of the people that I met, I knew there was something wrong, but I gaslit myself. What did I know? I was only just on the beginning of my journey. These people knew everything. Everybody loved them. Everybody thought they was wonderful. They had all these, everything, like their websites were all flashing and everything like that. But it felt wrong for me. But it took me a long time to realize that I was actually picking it up correctly. And what's really difficult is, if you see that for the truth that it is, and you are the only one, it's very difficult to move away from the crowd, because they don't like it. If you're the one who's saying, actually, I think there's something wrong here. A lot of these dark magicians have got it in such a way that they turn that kind of community, the spotlight onto you.
Isn't it? It's a overhype. It's like the overhyped celebrity. It's when you look at a lot, and I'm not saying all teachers and healers that are, that are well prominent, but there is a lot of overhype, and this kind of putting people on this top of the ladder, like, or putting them up on this pedestal. And as you see, there's a cult thing, and it interests me to talk about the hypnotherapy and the NLP. One of the things I did notice that, and I don't know why I could sense it, but I could sense that with a lot of personal development and self-development gurus. I had an interest in what a lot of people taught, but I never ever, there was only maybe a few that maybe I fragmented, I liked them stuff, but I never ever would feel complete alignment with anybody, because I suppose I recognised at an intuitive level with to feel, and it's the discernment thing. And I think for me, discernment, and I understand we all have we have lessons to learn in discernment. We all can get duped in different ways. But one of the things that I think does alarm me, and I suppose, and it maybe showed up in the last 4 years, was this real lack of any almost discernment, like people had. And also I saw that with clients who came to me in relation to things like spirit guides and things that they were connecting to. And when they told me things, I'm thinking, what the hell are you connecting to?
100%.
And I'll be honest, I was always somebody who would rather not connect to any guides, always just connected to God and light. And that was because I had so many strange experiences and would feel certain things with certain clients. And I had almost that magnified after the near-death experience I had. And I saw things and experienced things and thought, it just, that baffled me, because I thought, are people just so interested in that and attracted even to the darker side of, because if you think of the alchemist, the light and the dark, are they so just attracted to the magic and the miracles that they have no discernment where it comes from?
100%. Yeah, because it's really important what you're saying, Eileen, because I've come across this before. And, talking about hypnotherapists and NLPs now, there are some fantastic practitioners out there, 100%. But they are the ones that have really worked on themselves, worked on their own shadow, so that they are really, they can come from a very clean place. Okay,
Yes.
It's not about manipulation or projecting your own wounds because you haven't dealt with them. And what I've seen over the last especially the last 10 years, there's just been this big explosion of magic, and since Harry Potter and stuff like that. But what people don't realize is, as you come in from that child perspective, like I said at the beginning of the hero's journey. It's like, bang, oh my God, I see this invisible world, it's so exciting. Okay,
the divine, the purity,
that's it. But part of that journey is walking down that journey, and one of the next apart from the rebel, then how I would look at that would be the warrior. Now the warrior is about honing your craft. It's about working almost like you are Karate Kid with the wax on, wax off. He didn't go gallivanting to do his karate championships. No, his mentor made him do that, and he didn't understand what he was doing, but actually he was honing his craft. So part of that honing your craft, if you're gonna work with magic, for what better word, the alchemist kind of energy, then you need to be looking at all the stuff that is like programming within you, that's your beliefs that are not true, that you project onto other people, because your words are spells, your thoughts are spells. And the more that you open up to this energy, the more power you hold. So that power can come from the spirit world, or it can come from other places, but it will be attracts like. So if you have lots of trauma in you that you have pushed down into that shadow, and you're trying to be a healer, or you're trying to be a medium, or trying to be a psychic, okay, you're gonna have this energy coming towards you, because it's going to be attracted to that. Okay, and that's part of the journey, is the discernment within yourself, not just discerning outside, but also your own behavior and your own stuff, and having compassion when you realize, yeah, you have a shadow. We all have a shadow, and it's a bit shit, excuse my language on the podcast, but it is. But that's the journey, is the compassion for the parts of yourself, and bringing them back to God, bringing them back to the spirit, to the light. And that's very much that fork in the road. Can you do that? Or do you constantly want to draw energy from other people, or project the parts that you have onto others because you like the power, and you think it's you that's got the power, and don't realize it's not you, it's the power that comes through you out into the world when you serve. So what do you think, Eileen?
Definitely, Caroline, and there's so many nuggets in that. And I think we all, none of us get it perfect. Now I look back and there's a lot of things, and sometimes even I look back at some of my videos and think, oh God, Eileen, what did you say that for? So we're not, there's not that perfection, but I think it's that also motive. It's checking in with our motives, and are we coming back to that service to others or service to self, where I think people can get lost. And I think in this material world, it's very easy for people to fall into that dark alchemist or dark magician, and for so many reasons, because there's so many temptations just to do things for power, or to do things for monetary gain, or it's easily hijacked. And I think that can happen. I think also as well, there is so much misinformation. And one of the things like, you know, one of the first, I'm not saying it was just, but one of the first modalities was when I started Reiki. And I must admit, I didn't jump in like it wasn't like that when I studied it. You tend to do a lot. There was bigger, wider gaps than what it is nowadays, and you would do a lot of like how could you say, like case study, or like kind of case studies or practice and things between things. And as I think I explained to you before, the first person that introduced me, he kind of took me under wing like an apprentice, even though he wasn't actually the person that tuned me. And I would end up actually doing some of my training twice and 3 times for different reasons. That was a whole other story. But one of the things I did think about was, you know, you talking about this wax off and wax on, you know, like the Karate Kid, and you're like, I'll be honest, that always thought to myself, well, would really monks and people that mastered something be doing something over a couple of days? Or would it be years? To that, and I have to be honest, this is something that always stayed with me. And it always made me think, well, you know, even people getting a certain level of channeling or whatever it comes, and you know, and now I do have different views of even types of modalities now, but what did make me question things was, well, for example, someone that's living a monk type life is very disciplined. It's taking their spiritual practice and their daily aspects in so many levels, particularly a clear mind and dedicating their life to whatever they're doing. So they're coming from a certain standing point. When Joe Bloggs goes in to do their healing modality, well, we're no monks. We've not had a disciplined life.
Yeah.
And we're all getting these titles, master. And that did, and the more I went on my career, and I actually got to a point then I actually stepped away from that for lots of reasons. But a lot of things started to see a lot of things happening, and it just, and also was things, also had spiritual experiences, and I was actually picking up a lot of the healers that were supposed to be healing me, their stuff, and having a lot of sense of things that I was told couldn't happen but was happening. And that shifted me down, and it was another type of spiritual awakening. And after some experiences I had in my you know, life-threatening experience, and when I was in a coma, there were so many strange experiences that they pivoted me down to explore with teachers that would know, because I kept coming across these teachers that were saying that they knew, but when it came to it, did they know? No, they were either reading it out a book, or it was something that were told rather than them having experience of it. And this was a very valuable lesson to me. And also, when I looked at even different types of healers, you know, when I now look at people, I do think I know people that have phenomenal types of results with certain types of things. That's their gift. And there's other people that are really good at certain things. And it made me see healing in the whole world through different lens. But what I also learned was lots of people can think they know, but they don't really know until they've experienced it.
100%. And I agree 100%. It must come from experience. And that's the whole journey, Eileen. You're not getting it wrong when you come across this. It's like a muscle that you're building, you know. And what I've noticed as well is, you know, talking about some of the things that you're talking about there, that there's a propensity not to know that there's darker things out there. Everybody wants to. And I'll give you a little story just to make you laugh, okay? I was asked to go somewhere in London. God, it was about 12 years ago. I think it wasn't that much. Yeah, but I went somewhere, and it's not somebody that I would have followed. I didn't really have any interest in them. And no offense against people that like angelic things, because we've all got our own float, our own boats. I'm up the other end. I'm a bit more shamanic-y, if I'm being honest, you know. But somebody invited me to go, and I know, and I sat in my chair and I thought, oh, you know, just go out for the day to help this person. And sat there and I was like, oh yeah, listening to it. I wasn't that bothered. And then the break time happened. and all these angelic ladies, I have never seen anything like it. They all rushed out and they were fighting over these cards. And I was just like, what the bloody hell's going on here? Excuse my language. And I was like, this is a bit mad. And then I went to sit back into my chair and somebody had stolen it. Okay. And I was like, excuse me, but I was sitting there, I'd had all my stuff and she would not move. And I was thinking, this is not very spiritual at all. So I ended up sitting somewhere else at the front. And well, what happened was the person who it's all about, and she's a very famous Hay House author, ended up coming sitting next to me. She just sat next to me in the spare chair for the whole of the rest of the event. Well, the daggers that I got, because everybody wanted to sit there and I wasn't bothered. And she was looking at me like I was meant to adore her. And I was like, if this is what spirituality is all about, and I want to be part of that. Can you see how it brings up? There's that surface area of spirituality, but they all were pulling. They all wanted that part. They wanted the adoration, or they wanted somebody to recognize them, to see them. But the journey is for you to see yourself. It's not to give the power away to somebody else to validate you, but it's for you to know yourself and allow that energy to come through you. And what I did notice as well, part of this journey connected with this, is looking at the darker aspects of the alchemist that comes through, is for like the mediums and healers and psychics, you know, the field that I've worked very much in, is they have that connection with that addiction, like I saw in that event, is that they keep getting people to come back. They keep getting them to come back. They just want your money. They'll tell you what you want, and they create that dependence in you. And to me, that's very much part of the dark magician, because actually it's that saying about, you know, what's it about the fish? If you want somebody to fish or something,
you give them a fishing rod, don't give them the fish.
And then they go on their journey and they pay it forward and they serve someone else. But when you don't heal those wounds and you have that connection, and I was actually taken down by a friend of mine. It was about, I think it was when my mum died about 8 years ago. And I was in a spiritual community and I was actually teaching and doing, you know, trying my best to empower people. And it was brilliant. And then my mum had cancer and I gave it up to care for her. And in the meantime, my best friend decided that she wanted my business, so she went out of her way to take that business away. And so I understand what it's like when a dark magician comes for you and spreads the toxic spells and lies. And that is a very painful place. And the most painful place about it, Eileen, if I'm being really honest, was the fact that people believed that. Because in my head, I'm thinking, but I've always had integrity. Can't you see me? But what it did was it actually was the biggest blessing I ever had, because I saw the same thing happen in COVID, that people turned against each other because somebody was putting a spell on them. So this is the journey, I think, is understanding from the heart, okay, the alchemist heart, that you have a choice. I had a choice to become very bitter, that my best friend and all the people that I taught chose to believe that. That's the point that you become the dark alchemist, when you can't forgive, when you're full of resentment. Why me? It's not fair. God doesn't love me. Okay. But actually, and it took a while to work through, and it wasn't easy, because actually I had allowed that because I didn't have discernment. I'd felt that from my best friend, but I felt like, no, she wouldn't do that to me. But I'd felt it underneath and chose to ignore it. And that's what I'm seeing in the last 4 years. People can feel it underneath, but they don't want to look at it. They want to blame you. But the people that actually took that on are the people that have really grown, because they've allowed that shadow to come up in the last 4 years. But it's not easy, is it, Eileen? Because we end up losing people, you know, and I get that 100%.
And I think this is, you saying, you know, it's been a big lesson for humanity, this with and we see the dark magician trying to trick people. And, you know, and as you say, you know, the aspect of the choices that we make within that. And, you know, there's so many nuggets in what you've said, and you've also said about the resentment. I have to be honest, I think sometimes I'm still working through some of the pain of that dark almost, because I had so many things. And even one of the things that I still find, one of the things that I find interesting, even sometimes when I'm helping other healers or therapists, at the end, some of them are actually falling into the dark magician, trying to manipulate them. You come to, it's like a, almost that you should come to them. And I've talked about this where it's this sometimes expectation, if you know, maybe sometimes people. So one of the things that I saw, which, and I understand we're all on a journey, so it's like sometimes our awareness is this thing too, because you know someone and they're a type of therapist, that you should go to them. And where it's all about free choice and discerning what at that point is right for somebody. And I think there is a lot of misunderstanding in the healing community and lack of awareness where the soul has to choose what is right for them. It's not like, I know people see it personal, but it's a soul level. And there can be so many reasons why someone doesn't go to someone. I honestly don't have a problem. You know, when I put out my work, I would rather have people that I really feel are going to really benefit. I don't want people that don't feel aligned with my work or have certain values that maybe not similar. And it's not that I'm being mean. I want to make sure that the people that buy from me are actually going to feel that it's right for them, because I understand on the other side of what it felt like to often be missold something. And it was that lack of discernment. And sometimes I would say it wasn't maybe just lack of discernment, it was the person, the people pleaser, who maybe went, I don't know if this is, but maybe part gaslighting myself, as you said, thinking, or maybe it's me, but maybe something not completely, but them saying to me, no. And one of the things that they used to do, I don't see this as much now, I don't know if you've seen this, where people used to see this a lot with coaches, and they would say things like, if you don't invest, you're not wanting to help yourself. So it's like almost, if you don't invest in my product or service or my program, you actually really are sitting there and you don't want to help yourself. And I remember calling quite a few in a group because it got so out of hand with people and what they were saying. And I just said, this is shocking. This is so manipulative, because you don't know and that soul knows why. And I think that is part of us is getting back to, and it is hard because we've got that divine aspect. We want to see everything as good and pure as well and honest, but not everything is right for the soul, but not everything comes from the divinity. And we all can fall into the shadow elements, but and as a healer, as you say, we have to do as much work on ourselves. But going back to, I mean, even what's went on the last 4 years, I mean, I think this is a topic that really, you know, I think, you know, when I think about the dark magician and how much has went on over the last 4 years, it's obviously went on through humanity for you know, many years, but it's been very more obvious the last 4 years. And what would you say different? Is there anything you would like to comment about that? Because I think it's a topic that a lot of light workers want to discuss more about, you know, the different elements of how that comes through, how we're seeing it, and how it's even still impacting not just the individual, but it's still impacting the light worker at the moment. How do you see that, Caroline?
Okay, so especially around the Alchemist, one of the Alchemists is about the marriage of the opposites. So it's about holding two places at the same time. So what I'm seeing at the moment is this massive polarization going on throughout the planet. So a splitting of consciousness almost, and identity becoming small. Consciousness is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. And you've got, I'm for this, I'm for that, I'm for this, forgetting actually that we all are one. But you're not meant to be the seer consciousness here. You're meant to be an individual on the hero's journey. So what you've got in this moment, and I believe, and this is just personal, and I'll say it because I speak the truth, I've got very much lover energy about me, is I believe that there is darker elements on this planet at the moment that are doing it on purpose to split the power of that divine power that we have. So what's happening in this moment is you have a choice. You can go to the left, and I'm not to talk about politics, I'm talking about all things, or the right. So the polarity of everything. But what you have is a certain group of individuals in this moment that are being asked to hold that tension of the opposites. And what you're getting is a certain group of people, and it can be very painful because you will not be manipulated even to either side because you've gone through that discernment. You know that that's an illusion, and you're trying to hold that space in between, and it's so painful in a way because you're caught in that middle of the opposites of where society has split. But it's those people, if they can hold that space, what happens is they create something third from that tension of the opposites and the marrying of those opposites. It's like the Trinity is born, something of a higher consciousness comes. So it's like everybody's being asked to do that right now. Everybody. But what you're finding is that it's so excruciating to be in that tension that people need to soothe in this moment. They're looking for their spirituality, or they're looking for something. They're craving for the pain that's in the middle of holding that. And that's why I keep going back to the cults and things like that. So many people are so open to this stuff because they're looking for somebody to come and save them. And this is why I love this podcast, because you're saying from wounded healer to hero. It is the hero. We are the heroes in our own story. But you must be able to hold that discomfort until that Trinity, that third thing, is born from that friction of the two polarities. So that's how I see what is happening at this moment on a metaphysical level. So if all the audience is listening at this moment, think about who you're pointing your fingers out at. Who have you separated from? You don't need to forgive them. You know, you don't need to agree with them. But can you allow them to speak their truth about jumping on top of them or making them the enemy? Okay. And that's the discernment, the wisdom that's being asked for in this moment, because there is a manipulating force on the planet at the moment. Whether people believe it or not, there are some people that can actually see that or feel that, even if they are alone in speaking that message. Because they are of service, they're willing to risk everything to bring that to people. And how do you feel about that, Eileen? Would you see elements in your own life in that?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I think, just even what you said later there about, not jumping on, I think keeping that is trying to keep that. You can see you're more discerning. You can see what's going on, right? And it is trying hard to keep, but it's also you can have opinions of what's going on. What I've noticed with a lot of white workers have got so caught up into this polarization that that that's definitely they're evil. They've lost what it's about. Now, I'm not saying I've got caught up in what some of the things and trying to educate people to what to. So sometimes it's a fine line, because when you can see some evil going on, and people are actually, or they're all just watching mainstream, or they're just getting their information from mainstream, and they're shut off, and or they're in a country which is really, I know we're all getting censored. There's that level where you'd want to share some information, but it can be a fine line. But when you go into polarization and you start everything that, and it's not helping humanity because it's pushing. One of the things that I noticed, how they're really manipulating, they're using a lot of minority groups to, and they don't realize they're getting used as pawns, and we're all getting used as pawns, and this is what people don't understand. So people think that they're actually standing up for certain groups, but if you know the way that it's been done, there's this polarization. It's using minority groups, it's using certain things that's the flavor of the month to pull, and it's distractions and it's whatever, and it's kind of rising above aspects of it. But as empaths, as light workers, we do have the problem, as you see, it's that, you know, the tension thing, but it's, you know, it's feeling what's going on in the collective. Also watching, I know personally so many healers and things who their family, even people that their racial relationships broke down. They lost, you know, their daughters or whatever, people that they know just stop speaking to them. I know a lot of us have lost a lot, feel as if our relationships with certain people have been very frayed around the edges, or sometimes even worse. But I think one of the things, if you have been able to see through the discernment, you have this and able, I think one of the things you see in the truth community, sometimes they don't have the light. They're not spiritually connected. They maybe see themselves as truth warriors, but they're so focused on the truth warrior, but they don't have a spiritual connection, or they don't have that. So they are so into their anger, so into their hate, so into their pain, that's all coming out. It's the pain. And it's easy for us all to get pulled into that. But it is about, you say, the more you do the work and you see the light and ask elements, but then we see the opposite. I've seen a lot of people who are light workers who have shut down, who are pretending, and it's just about only love and light, and they cannot say, don't want to say, are not interested, and want to pretend that it's not there.
That is absolutely brilliant, Eileen. I love what you said there. And two things I would bring up is, one, I saw actually, I think it was a video you had about 2 spiritual awakenings. And I agree with you that there is a spiritual awakening where some people wake up and they see the spirit world, okay, and they become aware of the invisible world. Then there is a second spiritual awakening when you actually see that there is a darker force on the planet at the moment.
It's like a
Okay.
societal awakening,
Yeah,
isn't it? It's
yeah,
a different
100%. And I've never
Yeah.
heard anybody say that. And I heard you say that, and I thought, she's bang on the money. Okay. And what I see is actually that's the splitting of the male and the female, which is very much about the alchemist, because the female is about that spirituality. It's about being open, being that kind of surrender state as spirit comes forward, do you know? And you're in that female aspect of energy where the others are in that societal wake up, and they're very much in pride, which is kind of higher on the program, but it's a very male aspect of energy. It's a domineering, I'm going to fight you, and I'm going to do this, you know. But actually, and that's the polarization that I'm talking about. So it was such a good thing that you brought that, you know, you brought out that video, because that is the marriage of the opposites. You're meant to have the male and the female within you. You're meant to have that spiritual aspect within you, but you're also meant to be able to defend yourself in this world, have boundaries, have discernment, be able to see the truth that it's not just, you know, light energy on the planet, but that dark energy. And who knows, I'm often thinking, for all the darker things that have come for me in this life, you know, at the time it happened, I was such a victim. Why is this happening to me? Why? Oh my God, why does it come and it doesn't come to everybody else? But actually, every time it went, and I went through that dark night of the soul, and I looked at the fear of, did it have any power over me? Okay. And I was petrified sometimes, absolutely petrified. But as I moved through that, I started to realize it cannot touch me. It can only touch the shadow within me. It can frighten me like the Wizard of Oz. But actually, I am a child of God. I'm a child of spirit. And I hold that space. So you can come and you can frighten me only if I give you permission to do that. So anytime this darkness has come to me, actually, as I've moved through and we go back again to that pathway, can I turn it into gold? Even when I'm absolutely petrified because I'm seeing something, or do I hide and split myself off because I'm only wanting to be that tiny bit within myself because it makes me feel safe? And I feel this is what this time is about. Consciousness is coming to the planet to ask you, who are you? Can you stand in your own light, even when everything is taken away? All people, all beliefs, all ideas. Okay. Who are you underneath? Can you remember who you are? Can you remember past the veil of that you can't remember that you are spirit? And that is what is being called. So I understand it's really difficult for people when they want to stay And part of the alchemist is also they want to stay hidden. They want to stay hidden. And
Yeah.
people want to hide in this time. They don't want to shine their light. They don't want to rock the boat. But actually, there's a calling for many people now that are of service to stand up and actually show the truth about what they're thinking and feeling in this moment, even if it means standing away from your community. Doesn't mean the community won't follow you, because the alchemist is also about timing. Maybe it's your time to show other people and be the lighthouse. Okay, so if there's a calling, and it's what you said earlier, you may lose people in your community, Eileen. They're not ready for it. They need to go back into that shadow with all compassion. There are other people that can help them.
Oh, of course.
But maybe the pathway now is for you to hold people that are actually looking at there's something wrong here, or there's some gaslighting here, and actually want to do something about it and hold that space. So much respect for you. You're such a brave woman, 100%.
Oh, and the same to you, Caroline. And I love what you say, because it is that time, and there is a divine timing for people as well. There is an aspect. One of the things I would just want to end, one of the things also I feel that one of the biggest problems for many people is this lack of soul connection. So they're so used to, even in their spirit, they think they're doing their spiritual work and they're doing it, but they're still doing it at surface level. That they're not good soul connection. And to me, that divine child, that God spark, that connection is this connection, this good connection, and making the time to go inward, where it's easy to talk the talk and say things, but are you actually doing the work? Are you really doing the work? Are you going inward, or are you just doing it as a job or a vacation? I think a lot of light workers and healers, the last 4 years has also been a bit of a shock to the system, because they thought that this, they talk about ascension and awakening, had this maybe romanticized idea about it. And then when the reality has kicked in, it's been a bit of a shock for the system. And of course, we all have different aspects of our journey. And I do also think the archetypes are, it depends on sometimes how strong the archetypes are more stuck. I noticed a lot of people stuck in the innocent archetype or the tenor child didn't want to grow up. They're very stuck in that element. But it is with the heroes, and as all the strength is there. It's just sometimes we can't see it or we can't feel it, but it is there. I mean, I know as a child, I was the most unheroic child, the most timorous, terrified. Everybody called me a fairy cat in the family. I was the one that would hide under the covers, and we all, no matter what you think about yourself, and I want to say this to the audience, no matter what you think, and you think you're maybe not courageous, you're not strong, you're not powerful, you are, because we all have this connection. It's that God connection. And once you harness into that and you face the shadow, you face aspects, none of us are perfect. And knowing and actually surrendering, what I think is the most powerful thing to do, and I try and do every single day, is say, please let me be of service. I surrender myself to a greater power, right? Where people are so in their head and it has to be a certain way. And that's for me. What do you think, Caroline? We'll end it today, but what was your last thing? What would you say?
Okay. Yeah, it's very much, again, people are in the head. I agree. But consider, are you being made to be in your head? Because I saw during this time that so many things were done to close your heart. I saw people stop caring, going into apathy, going out of their body. So one of the most important things now is to really be in your body. And if that means feeling all the trauma that's come over the last 4 years, then they're your greatest gifts. Your greatest gold is in that. Because every time that's come for me, what you're talking about, my knees have knocked. I wasn't brave in it. I was scared as well.
Yeah.
But my love for God, for spirit, was stronger than my fear. And I allowed it to take me into that space. And without fail, God always had my back. There was a plan in it. And I became different. I was no longer in the ordinary world. I had gone into a different world. And that is the whole point of the hero's journey. You never return back. You never return back. You become more. You've become more of that Trinity, more of that higher consciousness. You hold that space, and that's all that you can do. So that's my last words on this episode, which has been absolutely dynamite. I love talking to you, Eileen. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Caroline. Thank you very much. And thank you for the audience. Please like, subscribe, and I'll be sharing more about Caroline's new offerings at the end of this session. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye for now.